Oh, I left you hanging. Sorry about that. I wasn't paying attention to the time. So anyway, in the myth of Heracles and Thespius, he sleeps with all 50 of Thespius's daughters in 50 nights, and they each give birth to one son apiece. Or in the other version, he sleeps with all of them in a single night, but in that version, he only sleeps with 49. That's where I got cut off last time. He sleeps with 49, and the remaining daughter is to remain a virgin and will stay a virgin as she will become a virgin priestess in a temple to Heracles. And what you might want to know is that all of the daughters are collectively referred to as the Thespidae. That would be Thespiadae. Thespidae. That's their name collectively. Okay, so in the second early adventure, as a young man, here we go, keep losing my cursor, in his myth with the minions of Orchmenus, Erginus is the name of the king of Orchmenus in Boeotia, again, the Theban area. He was the son of Clymenus and Boudia. Those names aren't necessarily that important, right? But Erginus, his father Clymenus, was killed by Thebans, and so he avenges his father's death by making war against Thebes, and he defeats them and inflicts heavy casualties. So the Thebans were compelled to pay King Erginus a tribute of 100 oxen per year for 20 years. This is like the price of killing his father, right? So the tribute ends earlier than Erginus expects because Heracles winds up attacking the minion emissaries who are sent to collect the tribute of 100 oxen. So this prompts a second war between Orchmenus and Thebes, but this time Thebes' forces are led by Heracles, and this time Thebes is victorious and King Erginus is slain in battle. So the 50 Daughters of Thespius is a little more colorful than that one, but that is again an early story of Heracles' military prowess. All right, so Disney fans, this is where the story of Megara comes in. However, this is nothing like the Disney movie. So, King Creon gives Heracles the hand of his daughter, Megara, the princess of Thebes, his eldest daughter. He rewards Heracles with marriage to Megara when he helps Thebes to defeat Erginus. All right, so again, rewarding of the hero, another common motif. However, this is where Hera steps in again to persecute Heracles, and this time she persecutes him by causing him to go crazy or go mad. He imagines that his wife Megara and the children that they have together are his enemies, or in other versions he imagines that they're beasts that have come to attack his family. But in either case, whatever the version is, he winds up mistakenly killing his family in his madness. Now, in different versions of the Heracles saga, this might happen in different places. However, most chronology places the murder of Megara and his children before the labors, and therefore the labors is his means of finding forgiveness and redemption for killing his family. So, of course, once his madness is lifted and he realizes what he has done, he's engulfed with grief, and he goes to Thespius, the other guy with the 50 daughters, and Thespius suggests that he go to consult with the Oracle of Delphi to find out how he can be, redeemed from his horrible crime of killing his family. And so the Oracle tells Heracles that if he performs 10, that's important, all right, 10 labors for Eurystheus, he would be purified of his crime against his family, and he would attain immortality. And so Heracles is forced to go to his relative, Eurystheus, and serve him and perform these 10 labors for his redemption. So the motif of servitude is actually something we're going to see again in the story of Heracles. He kind of messes up and has to pay for that a couple of times. But we also see the motif of reward, right? He was rewarded with the hand of Megara in marriage, but now he can be redeemed from his crimes and be rewarded with immortality. Now, in some versions of the story, it's at this point that Heracles becomes Heracles, that his name was originally Alcaeus, and that he changes his name to Heracles, glory of Hera, in order to, again, redeem himself for his craziness, his madness, and to try to win favor with Hera. But we'll see that that doesn't exactly work. Okay. So again, we've already talked about the term athloi, and again, this is kind of the heart of the story, and you can see in this graphic over here kind of the region in the Peloponnese where the different labors kind of take place. So you can refer to that, go back and take a look at it again if you need to. All right. So athloi in Greek means a contest undertaken for a prize. And again, it is the root word for athletics. And athloi in Latin is labors. So that's why we call them the labors of Heracles, not the athletics of Heracles. So again, he performs these labors in servitude to Eurystheus, right? He's going to attain immortality. He's going to attain redemption. And I want you to listen very carefully as we talk about some of these labors, because some of the labors themselves, or even the side adventures, the parerga, are conquests of death, sometimes literally, sometimes symbolically. So make sure you're making note of the ones that I tell you are the conquests of death. That's a good quiz question right there. Okay. Just like all of our heroes, he does deserve some assistance, and in this case, his main assistants are the goddess Athena and a mortal named Iolaus. He's a mortal who is Heracles' nephew, and he figures prominently in the labor against the Lernaean Hydra. All right, so again, he is a mortal, not immortal, but just a regular man named Iolaus. Most of the chronological arrangement of the labors is that the first 6 are performed within the Peloponnese, so in this region of Greece. Where is that cursor? There it is. Right, in this region of Greece. And then the last 6 are performed outside the Peloponnese. And those have universal implications because he, through those labors, becomes a benefactor of all mankind, kind of like Prometheus. So in those last 6 labors, he goes south, north, and east, but in the last 3 labors take him increasingly towards the west and towards the underworld. And again, a symbolic conquering of death. Okay, so let's take a look at a few of these first couple of labors. Okay, so these are all within the Peloponnese. So his first labor is against the Nemean lion. The Nemean lion is kind of a gigantic lion, but what is especially important about it is that its skin is impenetrable to any man-made weapon or any weapon whatsoever. It cannot be cut. So Heracles has to wrestle it and strangle it to death. In the end, Heracles winds up skinning it with its own claws, and he wears its hide in the place of a breastplate of armor, which had been made for him by the god Hephaestus. A lion skin is a little easier to carry around than an iron breastplate. And it does the same thing. So typically, it's from this particular labor that we get Heracles' kind of signature look. He is usually depicted as wearing a lion skin, and also that he carries a club that is made from an olive tree, and he also has a bow and arrow that were given to him by Apollo. Not one arrow, obviously a whole quiver full of arrows, but he has a bow and arrows from Apollo. So that's kind of his signature look. His second labor is against the Lernaean Hydra. Hydra in Greek means water snake. And so the Hydra has numerous heads, and when one head is cut off, what happens? Another head appears, right? Or another two heads appear, okay? So thank you, Captain America, for reminding us about the Hydra. I know, Marvel nerd. I can't help it. Anyway, the common number of heads is 8, with a 9th immortal head. So 8 can be killed, but 1 cannot be killed. So, as if this wasn't hard enough, Hera is going to send a huge crab to try to distract Heracles and tip the scales against him. However, Heracles smashes the crab with his foot, and so Hera places it in the sky as the constellation Cancer in order to reward it for its, efforts on her behalf. Now, he defeats the Lernaean Hydra by cutting off a head, and as soon as he cuts a head off, Iolaus, his nephew, cauterizes the stump, right, with like a torch, fire, whatever, and burns it so that another head cannot spring forth. Now, the problematic immortal head is the only one that's left, and so Heracles cuts it off and buries it underneath a boulder, where it is said that it still hisses to this day. Probably like the site of an underground spring or something like that. All right, so that's the first 2 labors of Heracles. So let me go ahead and pause here because I know I'm going to run out of time again, and we'll come back with the next video and pick up more of the labors.